Hi everyone, welcome to First Phase Media. This is Mark, and today I will be with Alfred Stewart, Chairman of Searchlight Resources, an exploration company focused on the Saskatchewan province. How are you doing, Alfred?
Very well, Mark. Thank you.
Well, could you introduce the company?
Certainly. Searchlight Resources is a company in the mineral exploration business. It's a Canadian company. Management is located in Toronto and Vancouver, and our properties are located in Saskatchewan, Canada. We are an experienced management team. We have 5 directors. If we added up the experience of our directors on the board, it's over 150 years of mining experience. So that means on average, our directors have 30 years of experience. Our CEO is an experienced exploration geologist with significant discoveries to his credit, and he's run very major programs outlining major gold resources. My background is I'm a retired investment banker, and I've spent my career finding good mining investments and oil and gas investments. And I joined the company a couple of years ago because of what they were doing and where they were doing it. So let's start with where they're doing it. We've mentioned Saskatchewan already. What's the big deal about Saskatchewan? Well, Saskatchewan is one of the best places in the world to explore if you're a mining company. Surveys repeatedly show Saskatchewan is top rated in Canada and second in the world only to Western Australia as a favorable place to make mining investments. But the other thing about Saskatchewan and what attracted me, because I have no problem working in other jurisdictions in Canada, uh, but what attracted me, I've been in the business for over 30 years. And when I look at properties in Saskatchewan, such as what Searchlight owns, I
Mhm.
see they're underexplored relative to other places. And the CEO and I got together in this company a couple of years ago because we shared that vision that Saskatchewan's underexplored and it's a great place to do exploration. So the next question is, well, what are we looking for? We're looking for critical metals and gold in Saskatchewan. And those are two different things, but let's talk about critical metals because that's been the focus for the last 2 years. Critical metals are things that make modern industry function. Critical metals are things that go into cell phones, go into electric cars, go into batteries. Basically, modern society needs critical metals and they're in short supply. So, Saskatchewan is blessed with critical metals. The most important one in Saskatchewan at the present time is uranium. Uranium is present in abundance in Saskatchewan, and the deposits of uranium in Saskatchewan are the richest in the world. And we have uranium on 2 of our properties, and we're currently exploring. But the unique thing about Searchlight is that our properties have other critical metals. So the real focus for Searchlight has been exploring for uranium plus the other critical metals called rare earths. So let me tell you what rare earths are. And again, link it back to why Saskatchewan is such a great place to work. Rare earths are on the periodic table that you might remember from chemistry in high school or university. They have a great big long row of 17 elements with multi-syllable names that are hard to pronounce and nobody knows what they are. But they're critical. They go into cell phones. They go into electric motors. They're necessary for electric vehicles such as Teslas. And 90% of the rare earth supply come through China. Up until recently, China was the major producer of rare earths in the world, but China's demand for rare earths has now exceeded its own supply, and China is now importing rare earths from other countries, such as Myanmar, to produce the metals from the rare earths. Saskatchewan has seen this as an opportunity, and Saskatchewan has developed a refinery in Saskatoon to process rare earths and make magnet metals, things that go into electric motors. And it's the only place in Canada where that happens. And it could be a major high tech industry for Saskatchewan going into the future. The refinery that Saskatchewan is built in Saskatoon processes a mineral called monazite. Monazite is it's like a car, and a car has 4 passengers. 3 of the passengers are rare earths, And one of the passengers is an element called thorium. Thorium isn't particularly useful. It could make a nuclear reactor, but it isn't currently being used as such. But what thorium does is it decays and it produces radiation, and we can find that from airborne surveys. Also, uranium is radioactive, and you can find uranium from airborne surveys. And as I mentioned, Saskatchewan has the richest uranium deposits in the world. So northern Saskatchewan has been covered by radiation surveys looking for uranium, and they identified areas where there was thorium, but they didn't follow up to see if there were any rare earths there. So Searchlight has staked all of the areas where we see potential for rare earths, and we have found incredibly high-grade rare earths. In fact, our rare earth grades are over 50% from surface samples, and that is multiple times the grade of rare earth economic deposits around the world. So we have very high-grade rare earths at surface. We're working in a great province. We have a refinery infrastructure so that if we can develop a mine, we have a local market for our product. So,
Okay.
yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, definitely a lot of information to process. And because you talk about Saskatchewan in general, and if we focus more, on Searchlight resources and your properties, could
Yes.
you tell us if you made any significant discoveries at the Kulyk Lake project?
Kulyk Lake could be considered a discovery. What is a discovery? Generally, a discovery is a point where the market says, aha, and your market value goes crazy. I think we're at the pre-discovery stage, but we're staring at high-grade mineralization of rare earths at surface. So we have discovered rare earths, but the market hasn't yet discovered us. We're still very modest in market value.
And what about your other project, the Bootleg project? Is it at the same
Yes.
step?
The Bootleg project is in eastern Saskatchewan. It's a gold project and a base metals project, both. If you look at Saskatchewan, I mentioned that it has very, very high grade uranium deposits. It's also been a major producer of copper around the Flin Flon area. Flin Flon is a community right on the eastern border of Saskatchewan and into Manitoba. And there's a big mining complex in Flin Flon, and our properties are within 5 kilometers of that town. What we're looking for is both base metals, copper and zinc, and gold. And our most advanced project is the gold project called the Bootleg Lake Gold Project. And it's actually has 4 former producing gold mines on it. Most recently, they were explored in the 1980s, and nothing has been done there in 30 years. Why? Well, in the 1980s, when they were last operating looking for gold, the price of gold was $350 an ounce. And subsequently, interest waned because the price was too low to do anything economic. Gold is now $1,600 an ounce. And even correcting for inflation over the last 30 years, that still is a much higher price than existed when gold was last active around Flin Flon. And since that time, the focus has all been on looking for copper and zinc. But we had a different idea. We wanted to consolidate these 4 different gold mines because we see the potential that these things might be hooked together in a larger structure and have a much larger gold mine than has been explored in the past. The words that we like to use is the mining that was done on the Bootleg project was mom and pop scale, very small scale mining. But we see that the small scale mines line up on a structure, and there could be a much larger mine if we use large trucks and shovels and modern technology. So that's what we're about with the Bootleg project.
Okay. And also let's discuss some finance. You recently
Yes.
closed on mid-August private placement, right? So
Yes.
could you tell us what you will use the money for?
Right. We had been waiting for the federal government to pass legislation to provide a tax benefit for people that want to invest in critical metals exploration. So the federal government came through in their budget in June. So in August, we closed a private placement dedicated to do critical metals exploration on our property, which will be Kulyk Lake, Doddridge Lake, and other properties in northern Saskatchewan where we do have the critical metals present. So that money has been earmarked for our critical metals projects, not for our gold project.
Okay. Now let's think a little bit about the future, for investors, for our viewers. Could you let us know what investors, viewers could expect in the short term and midterm outlook?
Right. So as I mentioned, Saskatchewan is vastly underexplored. What has been surveyed for is uranium. Radiation surveys have been done. There's been a lot of drilling looking for uranium, but the rare earths have been neglected. So we have been prospecting our Kulyk Lake property, and we have found outcrops of rare earths at surface. We've had geologists on the property in September, and we've collected a lot of samples, and we have found new zones of rare earths, and we've sent samples to the lab. So we have a lot of hard rock samples being processed, looking to see what the assay values are for rare earths.
And if we focus on a broader look, what would you say it is important now to focus on electrical meters?
Well, the electric vehicle market is just taking off. When industries change from one form of technology to another, they don't change in a gradual linear way. They go through a disruption. So things pick up a little bit and then they go parabolic. And this is what's happening with electrical vehicles. Tesla has become the most valuable car manufacturer in the world, and not by just a little bit, by multiple times. And they need critical metals. So part of the reason why I'm working with Searchlight is I want to help the world transition to cleaner, greener method of transportation. And rare earths are vital to that. And yet China controls 90% of the supply. We need diversification in North America. We need our own supply of rare earths so that we aren't beholden to China. And that's what we're about at Searchlight.
Okay. Well, this was our last question. Alfred, thank you a lot for your time and for talking more about Searchlight Resources. And yeah, looking forward to all these future news we could hear from your company.
Thank you very much, Mark.